In the spring of 1961, inside the classified laboratories of the Soviet space program, scientists were facing a problem that threatened to ground the entire Vostok mission. They had the rockets, they had the math, but they didn't know if the human body could survive the invisible bombardment of cosmic radiation outside the Earth's atmosphere. They needed a biological shield. They needed a substance that could hyperload the cells with antioxidants, repair DNA damage in real time, and protect the skin from radiation burns. They didn't turn to synthetic pharmaceuticals. They didn't turn to American inventions. They turned to a secret that had been guarded in the remote mountains of Siberia for centuries. When Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space, he wasn't fueled by synthetic vitamins. He was fueled by a bright orange oil extracted from a thorny, unkillable bush that thrived where nothing else could grow. This plant was considered a strategic military asset. It was protected, it was studied, and for 50 years, behind the Iron Curtain, its true potential was kept from the West. While Americans were being sold the idea that a glass of pasteurized orange juice was the pinnacle of health, the Russians were utilizing a berry that contained 20 times the vitamin C of an orange combined with a rare fatty acid profile found nowhere else in the plant kingdom. This is sea buckthorn, the holy fruit of the Himalayas. And the reason you are standing in line at the pharmacy buying bottles of synthetic ascorbic acid instead of harvesting this biological battery from your backyard is because one supports a multi-billion-dollar supply chain, and the other makes you independent of it. To understand the magnitude of what has been hidden, we first have to deconstruct the mythology of the orange. For 100 years, the global citrus industry has spent billions of dollars cementing the idea that the orange is the gold standard of nutrition. It is a marketing masterpiece. They successfully equated a single fruit with a single nutrient in the global consciousness. But biologically, the modern grocery store orange is a ghost. It is a bag of sugar water with a moderate amount of vitamins, bred for sweetness and shelf life. Picked unripe to survive a 3,000-mile truck ride and gassed with ethylene to turn it the correct shade of orange. By the time it reaches your table, it is a shadow of a food. Sea buckthorn exposes the orange for what it is, a product of convenience, not nutrition. Forensic nutritional analysis of sea buckthorn berries reveals a density that shouldn't be biologically possible. Depending on the subspecies and the soil, it contains between 12 and 20 times the vitamin C content of an orange. But numbers on a page don't tell the whole story. Vitamin C is unstable. In most fruits, it degrades rapidly after harvest. Heat kills it. Oxygen kills it. Time kills it. If you cut an apple, it turns brown. That is oxidation. That is the vitamins dying. Sea buckthorn has a secret mechanism. It lacks the enzyme ascorbinase, which is responsible for breaking down vitamin C. This implies something profound. It means the fruit can hang on the branch freezing and thawing through a brutal Siberian winter, battered by wind and snow, and still retain its potency. It doesn't rot like an orange. It ferments and concentrates. It is a survival food designed by nature for the end of the world. And yet, vitamin C is arguably the least interesting thing about this plant. The real threat to the pharmaceutical and beauty industries lies in the oil. If you squeeze a blueberry, you get juice. If you squeeze a strawberry, you get juice. But if you squeeze a sea buckthorn berry, you get juice and oil. This is incredibly rare. Outside of olives and avocados, fruit doesn't usually produce lipids, but this berry produces one of the most complex healing oils in nature. It is loaded with omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9, but the crown jewel is omega-7, palmitoleic acid. This is a fatty acid that is incredibly rare in the plant kingdom. It is a primary component of human skin. It is what keeps your skin elastic, your mucous membranes moist, and your tissues creating collagen. It is the biological glue that holds us together. The beauty industry knows this. If you walk into a high-end department store and look at the back of a $300 anti-aging cream, scan the ingredients list. You might see hypophyraminoids oil listed near the bottom. They sell you a microscopic drop of it, mixed with fillers, perfumes, and preservatives. They monetize the extraction. They know that if you grew the plant, you could press the oil yourself for pennies. They know that a single bush produces enough omega-7 to treat a village. They took a weed that grows in the ditch and sold it back to you as a luxury. So why is it hidden? Why, if this plant is so miraculous, is it not in every grocery store in America and Europe? The answer lies in the architecture of the modern food system. The industrial food chain is not built for nutrition. It is built for efficiency of harvest and transport. Sea buckthorn is a rebel. It refuses to be industrialized. The berries do not have stems. They grow directly on the branch, clustered tight against the wood, surrounded by vicious 3-inch thorns. You cannot run a machine harvester through a sea buckthorn orchard without destroying the berries. When you try to pick them by hand, they burst. They are so thin-skinned and full of juice that they crush under pressure. This makes them impossible to sell fresh in a plastic clamshell container. They cannot be shipped 3,000 miles in a truck. They cannot sit under fluorescent lights for a week. Because the grocery industry could not solve the harvest problem, they abandoned the crop. They decided that if they couldn't commodify it icily, the public didn't need to know about it. They left it in the wild. They chose the orange because it has a thick rind and travels well, not because it is better for you. We sacrificed human health for logistics. But the history of this plant goes back much further than the Soviet space program or the modern grocery store. The ancient world knew what we have forgotten. 12 centuries ago, the armies of Genghis Khan were sweeping across Asia. The legend says that during a brutal campaign in the mountains, Khan ordered his wounded and dying horses to be left behind in the wild patches of thorny shrubs. He expected them to die. They were a liability. When his army returned months later, they didn't find skeletons. They found a herd of horses that were not only alive, but stronger than before. Their coats were gleaming with a supernatural shine. They were energetic and fierce. The horses had been grazing on the leaves and berries of the sea buckthorn. The Greeks noticed the same phenomenon. They named the plant hippophae, hippo meaning horse, and phos meaning shining, the shining horse. They realized that if this plant could resurrect a dying animal, it could build an empire. The Mongols began feeding it to their warriors. It became the secret weapon of the steppe. This knowledge was passed down through Tibetan medicinal texts, where it is mentioned in the Rijud Bzhi, the 4 tantras, as a cure for 80 different ailments. It was the aspirin, the antibiotic, and the energy drink of the ancient world. But as Western medicine rose, based on synthetic compounds and patentable molecules, this chaotic, thorny, wild medicine was pushed to the fringes. It was labeled folk remedy. It was ignored by the institutions funded by the pharmaceutical lobby. But the plant kept proving them wrong. In 1986, the world witnessed the horror of Chernobyl. The radiation poisoning was catastrophic. The Soviet doctors were overwhelmed. Standard burn treatments were failing. The skin of the victims was literally falling off. In desperation, they turned back to their secret supply. They used sea buckthorn oil to treat the radiation burns of the liquidators. Brave men and women sent in to clean up the reactor. The oil promoted skin regeneration at a rate that synthetic drugs could not match. It provided a barrier. It accelerated the healing of DNA-damaged tissue. Even in the face of nuclear disaster, this ancient berry held the line. However, the plant itself is a survivor. It doesn't need humans to cultivate it. In fact, it prefers our neglect. Sea buckthorn thrives where nothing else will grow. It loves the sand, it loves the salt, it loves the wind. You can plant it on a barren, windswept dune where the soil is dead, and it will flourish. This is because of its partnership with the underground world. Sea buckthorn is a nitrogen fixer. But unlike beans or peas, which use rhizobia bacteria, sea buckthorn partners with frankia bacteria. This allows it to pull massive amounts of nitrogen from the air and inject it into the soil. It creates its own fertilizer. It builds its own soil. Its root system is so aggressive and extensive that it is used to stop soil erosion in deserts. In China, there is a project called the Great Green Wall. They are trying to stop the expansion of the Gobi Desert. They are planting millions of acres of sea buckthorn. It is the only thing that can hold the line against the encroaching sand. It is a terraforming machine. While we in the West buy bags of nitrogen fertilizer that destroy our waterways, this plant is repairing the damage we caused. It is a condemnation of our entire agricultural philosophy. We fight nature. Sea buckthorn weaponizes nature to heal the land. So, why is there a sudden resurgence of interest? Why are you hearing about it now? Because the supplement industry has figured out how to extract the molecules. They have realized that the synthetic vitamin C ascorbic acid, which is largely manufactured from genetically modified corn mold in industrial vatses, not enough. People are getting sick. The immune systems of the modern population are collapsing. Synthetic vitamin C is an isolate. It is just the outer shell of the vitamin complex. In nature, vitamin C comes bonded with flavonoids, rutin, and minerals that help your body absorb it. When you take a synthetic pill, your body urinates most of it out. It doesn't recognize it. C. buckthorn provides the whole complex. It provides the synergy. Now, corporations are rushing to bottle it. They are creating C. buckthorn serums and immunity blends. They are charging $50 for a tiny bottle of oil. They are taking a plant that grows like a weed and gentrifying it. They want you to buy the product, but they are terrified you will plant the seed, because if you plant it, you opt out of their system. Let's talk about growing it. This is the part that nurseries don't emphasize. They will sell you a blueberry bush that dies if the soil pH is off by 1 point. C. buckthorn is practically unkillable. It is hardy from zone 3 to zone 9. It takes temperatures of -40 degrees Fahrenheit without blinking. But there is a gotcha biological lock that you need the key for. C. buckthorn is dioecious. That means there are separate male and female plants. If you buy one bush, you will get nothing. You will get leaves, but no berries. You need a male to pollinate the females. One male can service up to 7 females. Nurseries often fail to label them correctly, or they sell unsexed seedlings. This leads to failure, which leads the gardener to give up. It is a subtle form of sabotage. But if you get the ratio right, the production is staggering. A mature female bush can produce 30 to 40 pounds of berries every single year. Imagine 40 pounds of a fruit that has 20 times the vitamin C of an orange. That is 800 pounds of oranges worth of vitamin C from a single bush. You cannot eat that much fresh. It is too tart. It is intense. It tastes like a mixture of pineapple, citrus, and passion fruit, but with an electric acidity that wakes up your nervous system. You juice it, you freeze it, you dry it. You make an oil infusion. One harvest provides enough immune support for an entire extended family for a year. This is food sovereignty. And this is why it was buried. A population that gets its vitamin C from a bush in the backyard doesn't need the Florida citrus industry. A population that gets its omega-7 south from a berry doesn't need the cosmetic industry. A population that heals its own skin doesn't need the pharmaceutical industry. We are living in an era of supply chain collapse. We have seen empty shelves. We have seen prices double. We rely on food that travels thousands of miles. We rely on systems that are fragile. C. buckthorn is anti-fragile. It loves the cold. It loves the drought. It loves the poor soil. It is the plant of the future because it was the plant of the ancient past. It connects the horses of Genghis Khan to the cosmonauts of the Soviet Union. It connects the ancient healers of Tibet to the modern biohackers. But you have a choice. You can continue to believe the orange lie. You can continue to buy synthetic vitamins made in a lab. You can continue to let the grocery store dictate your health. Or you can find a spot in your yard, a spot with bad soil, a spot where nothing else grows, and you can plant the shining horse. You can plant the thorns that protect the treasure. The harvest is difficult. You have to cut the branches. You have to freeze them to get the berries off. It requires work. It requires engagement. It is not a convenience food, but the reward is independence. The reward is a medicine chest that regenerates every year for 50 years. The corporations tried to hide it behind the Iron Curtain. They tried to hide it behind the myth of the orange. They tried to hide it behind the difficulty of the harvest, but the secret is out. The biology is undeniable. The most nutrient-dense fruit in the temperate world is waiting for you to plant it. If this video opens something for you, subscribe and hit the bell. Every like and share preserves what they tried to erase. The next vault opens soon.